Okay, welcome everyone. And tonight, this is a really, really awesome special meeting here with Dr. Lorri. And the topic is, that we've kind of gone around and round on this, but it's about going within and you'll have everything without. And this includes our inner child. And we have really some pretty special, intimate information that we're going to share back and forth. And so, Dr. Lorri, I really would love to introduce you to the magnitude of everything you do and who you are, but it's massive. And I'm very honored that I got to meet you years ago. I think we've known each other for close to 20 years or
Yeah,
something
maybe a
like
little.
that,
Mhm.
little more. And she's got just an amazing facility in Butler, Pennsylvania. But I would love for you to describe who you are and what you do, because the level of professionalism and the magnitude of people you reach out to and help is unbelievable.
Judy, thank you very, very much. And everything you just said reflects right back to you. So you do amazing work and basically send your light and love out wherever you can. And I thoroughly appreciate that as well. So we're a good duo here to be talking this evening about going within and really reconnecting to the inner child, something I've been working on more recently. I've done it probably throughout my life since my 20s, but more recently it's come up in a couple different ways, that reconnection. So I'm happy to be sharing that this evening. I also wanted to make a comment. Some people that are on here, I know them, and they have seen the picture of me as a little girl. And I was chuckling because obviously, as you're looking at me now, and you saw the advertisement, my hair is very different. It's been short, then it went long, and it's short again. And I only laugh because when I went to get my hair cut a few weeks ago, I showed my stylist this picture of me when I was very little. And she and another stylist there said, "Oh my gosh, it's like the same person. You even have the same hair." From that picture that long ago. So it wasn't meant to be, but it does kind of mimic what's happening right now in my life. So my background, my goodness, I started on this integrative health journey 25-ish years ago. My education, I have a bachelor's degree in athletic training. I was the first female athletic trainer at Duquesne University back in the 90s. While I was there, they began a Master of Physical Therapy program. And so I decided to go back to school and completed my master's at Duquesne as a physical therapist. And then went out into the world, and multiple years later, I guess maybe 10 years later, decided to go back for further studies to obtain my doctoral degree in physical therapy. Completed that at Slippery Rock. My mother always said I was a terminal student, and that continues to today. I love to learn. I love to read. I'm very open to many things that come to me. I then discern, but I love to learn. There's so much to this world. Intermixed in there, I completed a certificate as a personal wellness coach and natural nutritional consultant. So lots of letters behind my name, as I believe were again on the advertisement. All of them blended together allows me to provide what we do. So I have to say collectively, we have an amazing staff here. In one building, I have two businesses, a physical therapy business called Physical Therapy and Balance Centers, and then also Dr. Lorri Health and Wellness, really Dr. Lorri Health and Fitness. And that combination, that integrative combination allows us to touch the lives of thousands of people every year. The goal of that has always been to create a bridge between physical therapy, or really the medical world, I should say, and just using the alternative world, alternative health. I love the term integrative health because what that does is allows me to be firmly rooted right in between those two worlds. We'll say medical and alternative. And because of that, I can really use my right and left brain and bring multiple different levels of healing into our space and to people. And that, I believe, is why I have been placed on this earth. And all the work that I've done on myself has led to us being in quite an incredible building that used to be a car dealership in Butler, Pennsylvania. I'm sitting literally in an office in the peak of that building as we speak. And believe me, the little girl, probably into her 20s, maybe later, but definitely little girl never thought that she'd be sitting in this space. And by the grace of God and multiple angels and saints and anybody else that's been holding me and leading me and pushing me, here we are. And this has brought me to you 20 plus years ago and brought me to this belief that I need to continue to teach and share my story and my journey. And that's why we're here tonight.
Thank you. That's so beautiful. Dr. Lorri, what would you say is your first real experience of tapping into holistic healing?
I would say that, boy, I'm going back in time now, but I would say really right in my late 20s, I started to read more. My mid to late 20s, I just was drawn more and more to readings like Wayne Dyer and multiple gurus, if you will, like Wayne. And I have to share a card of his that I just pulled before this came on because I'm guessing Wayne's with us because of this card. So really started reading, and I just felt drawn. I would go into different bookstores or whatever it may be, and I was drawn to these books that talked about ways of healing beyond what we were doing and beyond what I learned. And then from there, I was introduced to a nutritional supplement company, and that really gave me the push where I started to dive deeper and deeper into nutritional supplements. And from there, it's just gone in so many levels. We don't have enough time on this call, but those are
Sure.
the three things.
This is so wild. This is how the spirit works. I have been so entrenched last night, early this morning, to listen to Wayne Dyer. Okay. I mean, this is how I love the synchronicity of the world and how the infinite divine works. And, and I was listening to there's a spiritual solution for every situation, every problem. And this started to bring back to me conversations that I actually had with Wayne several years ago, Dr. Dyer, and then listening to this on some of the YouTubes, he's talking about his own children as well. Okay, so the synchronicity between our conversation tonight and what we're sharing about the inner child, it is apropos, no accident whatsoever. I'd love to see that card you pulled.
Yeah, so I'll show it, but I'm going to read it because it won't be easy for everybody to read. But the front says, "See the blessings in disguise." And it reads this: "Take stock of those who were negative forces in your past. Search for ways in which their actions might have been blessings in disguise. Abandonment, abuse, and disloyalty can be valuable teachers when you see that you are experiencing them for the greater good." And true, I pulled this 10 minutes before we started. I have a box behind me, and I do have the book you were talking about on my shelf over there, along with many others. But that thing, that sentence, abandonment, abuse, disloyalty can be valuable teachers when you see them for the greater good. And I know through my life, and I'll be sharing some experiences, and Judy, I believe you will be as well, that took me a while to understand the beauty disguise of those, and really started again on that path. I mean, I think it was always in me, but in my 20s where I started searching and pulling and started to realize that those experiences in my younger years and since have created me. They've made me a very strong yet very sensitive person. I recently read a quote that said, "Please don't mistake my sensitivity for weakness." And I love that, because I am a very sensitive person. I'll cry with you right now about anything. Sometimes I cry at a commercial, and I'm okay with that now. There are many years that I tried to hold that in. But yeah, I love being sensitive. I love sharing those emotions with others. And in that, I also know I'm very strong and very grounded. And that has come from a lifetime of growth.
I love what you just shared about that because I know I've heard this myself. I've heard this from a lot of other people. When they were children, we would hear, "You're too sensitive, don't cry, no, don't cry." And I have worked with people, I've met people who have never cried.
Yeah.
Okay. That when we get that so suppressed in us. And I don't know, maybe it's the timing of everything today where everything is coming out and we're feeling so much, and trying to decipher what's real, what's not real. But what we can know for sure is that child within can have appropriate, loving attention and care. And and this brings back to how we were talking, mentioning about Dr. Wayne Dyer, and with the same belief that we knew we were coming down here. Okay. We were coming to this earth and taking on this, physical body, this humanism that we have. And we're coming here to remember, we're coming here to undo. Um, and it reminds me of the idea there's a time to play, there's a time to laugh, there's a time for safety, there's a time for danger, there's a time for depression, there's a time for anxiety, there's a time for happiness, there's a time for grieving, there's a time for joy. We as humans want to be able to think we would 100% be in this most blissful state and feel this consciousness of love all the time. Okay. I truly believe if we were in the state of bliss all the time, you and I would not be on right now, Zoom. Okay. We are evolving, and that inner child, that relationship is so important to get in touch with and to communicate with and look at. Wow. Okay. How can we help her, him, whatever it is? How can we help along the way in this relationship that is so divine? And in that process, like you recently had some pretty profound experiences with this, and becoming very disciplined in what you do right before you go to bed, what you do when you wake up. I'd love for you to share some of that.
Yeah, interestingly, on something you just said, I read something today that talked about what you just said, that we cannot always be, or if we were always be in that state, always in that state of bliss, we would not clear some of the other things that we need to clear. So going through some of those bumps and bruises and rough times help us to clear things from ourselves and possibly from other people's energies that we didn't even know we were holding on to or that we could. And that leads into what you and I were talking about. And I will share that in a minute, but I also want to share about the crying. Two instances. My grandfather was my favorite guy. We just were super close. He was on his deathbed and we went into the hospital, and I was 9 years old. He literally died and then was buried on my 10th birthday. And this is how connected we were. And I'm in the hospital room, and one of my relatives, I started crying, and one of my relatives said, "Lorri, don't cry." And I thought, I'm 9 years old and my grandfather's dying. I'm going to cry, whether I'm 9 or 19 or 99, this is an appropriate reaction. A few years later, my sister was hit by a vehicle and was in the hospital on life support and then passed away. She was 15, I was 11. A colleague of my aunt's had picked me and two of my cousins up to take us to the hospital. And as we were driving there, again, I'm 11 years old, the woman driving us said, "Lorri, remember when we get there, you need to be strong for your mother. So, don't cry." And I'm thinking, why are people telling me not to cry? These again, very appropriate situations, which now also leads in to the story you were talking about. So what you'll hear between those two stories that I just gave you, again, I was 9 going on 10 years old and 11 for those two profound deaths of family members. When I was 8 years old, my father, who was an alcoholic, had been very abusive, physically abusive to my mom for quite a few years. And this particular day, again, I'm 8. I'm the only one home. I had 3 siblings. I'm the only one home with my mom. And she had presented divorce papers to my dad. He came home from the bar, found the papers, got unbelievably angry, went after my mother, pushed her to the ground, started to choke her. She was able to get out. "Lorri, call your grandfather." I went to call, and my dad just grabbed the phone away from me. He never touched any of the kids. So now I'm stuck. So my dad has his hands on my mother's neck. He wants to kill her because of these divorce papers. And at 8 years old, I grabbed his wrists and I was able to pull him off. And he was a good 200 plus pounds. So in that moment, he fumbled backwards. My mom was able to get up. Within a bit of time, we were able to leave the house. Obviously, obviously or not, she was okay. At least, wasn't strangled. Obviously had emotional wear and tear after that. And with that, my relationship with my mom kind of reversed. I mean, she was still my mom and we were super, super close all of our lives. But I did take on the role of being a caregiver for her more so than vice versa. And as I grew, she would tell everyone, "Lorri's created herself. Lorri is so strong. Lorri's done all of this." So more recently, I've been doing more work. I'm always looking for ways to clear my cells if I'm feeling fatigued or hurting or any of those things, and I can't cure those physically, then I wonder what's happening in my body. And so sound therapy was brought forth in many different ways to me. And I started doing something called SSP. And in one of those sessions, music was playing. So basically in this case, it was classical music through headphones. And I started having just some head movement that I was not doing, instantaneous. And then that head movement went backwards. And the practitioner asked me what I was feeling. And I said, "I feel like someone's pushing me back. And I allowed myself to go back. There was a pillow behind me. And then she asked for my wife, Melissa, to come in and help with this. And so Melissa was pushing against me, against my hands to make me feel that, because she felt something, the practitioner felt something was coming out. And so I pushed, and when I pushed away, I said, "Get off of me." And we did it again, and then even more profoundly and with some anger, I said it again, "Get off of me." And at that moment, the vision that came was that of my parents in that dining room in this argument. And as clear as day as I can see that picture and have been since I was 8 years old, I'm now 56. I can tell you that story, and I didn't realize I've worked through that. I mean, I can tell you more as a third person now, but that's what I feel like I'm doing. Of course, I have emotion around that. However, I didn't realize that I was carrying my mom's energy with me. I didn't
Wow.
realize that, that get off of me, was my mom, saying to my father, get off. And at the end of that, the practitioner said, okay, let's go back to Lorri at 8 years old. And at 8 years old, what does Lorri need? What are you seeing? And what I immediately saw was those two in the dining room. They had been arguing, but my father hadn't gone after my mom. He stopped and it calmed down. And then my mom came and picked me up. And so that very horrible situation never happened, at the end of this. But the most profound thing was that my mom was holding me and saying, it's okay, Lorri, it's okay. And through two other sessions that we worked prior to that, the little girl came up again. And what we talked about there was me picking up little Lorri Linkowitz and holding her. And the little girl is tearful, she's scared. But I say to her, Lorri, look where we are. We've made it. Look what we've done. And I thank little Lorri for being so strong. And so that's where we are. Those moments, there was, from the time I was 6 or 7 years old until in my teens, the amount of loss through death, divorce, and other relationships was profound. However, at this point in my life, and I have been for the last 20 years working on this consistently, we have to allow all that to build me and to be at a place in my life where not only do I have the knowledge because I've studied, literally studied and obtained degrees, but also because I've studied human nature and life and these ways of allowing ourselves to remember those times and be grateful and know that if we didn't have them, that we may not be the person that we are today.
Wow. I love that. I relate to it so much. And the thing that I get from what you're saying, Dr. Lorri, is healing what happens in the spirit when it drops into the heart, and having those experiences. Those experiences can make us or break us. Okay. Even as a child. I find this fascinating, okay, that you can't get to the place you got to if you were into blaming, and if you were into choosing to stay stuck in the past of blaming a parent or blaming society, blaming, I don't care what it is. But we came in, the way we came in, I think is so perfect. It's so perfect. We were aware that this would be the way we would grow and heal the most at some point. I don't know when that would be, but at some point. And I remember as a child, oh gosh, a variety of times looking around and having experiences and saying, what the heck? Okay, this is a weird place. What is this all about? It's and I remember having to be so tough and so strong. Okay, especially when you have an environment, there is just such high level of inappropriate behaviors, and it's, you don't even know what to do with it. And as a child, I don't know about you, I didn't even think that you could do anything with it. Okay, you're in survival mode, or you're taking it all in, subconsciously feeling different things. And then there comes a point in life, and I remember this was my trip when we moved from California to Colorado. And I was definitely a person, I would feel emotions, but I can control the faucet. you know how to control the faucet.
Oh,
Okay,
yeah.
it's like turn it on a little, not too much. We can't show too much emotion here. And I remember even at my father's funeral, there were relatives that showed up, and they didn't even flinch a tear. Nieces, and like, wow, I was watching that. I'm like, what kind of family is this? But then when I moved to Colorado, I had emotions surface. I couldn't stop. I could not stop. I went to as many sweat lodges as I could. I went, you name it, I did it. Just pray. It now, why I share that, Dr. Lorri, is because I've heard this with people for years saying, I feel things, but if I let myself start to cry, or if I let myself feel too much, I'm afraid if I stop, if I start, I'm not gonna stop. You know that one?
Sure,
Yeah.
sure.
Okay. And then how it's perceived. You know, you
Yeah,
know, it as a child, we didn't grieve.
right.
I had no idea you could. What
Yeah.
it was. Oh, okay, somebody passed away. Okay, or somebody's gone. What do you do? But now as an adult, this is so beautiful that we could engage in this magnificent relationship. And I love the embracing of that little girl, that she can be held, she can be loved, she
Mhm,
could be made safe.
mhm,
Okay, or have that type of interaction. Because when we're taught, we're exposed to survival, we're exposed to fear, really not knowing what shoe's going to drop next, and how things were at home. And this brings up another thing, and maybe you could tell me what your experience has been on that. It has taken me years to feel at home in my own home. And this is
mm,
where the topic, going within, you'll have everything without. But I had to come to this place of home within myself, and for that little child, that little girl, to start feeling at home. Can you
mm.
relate to that?
Yes, and I would say that in 2010, I believe it was, I
Mm-hmm.
built a house in Mars, just south of Butler, and it was my home. I built it. And that it was at that moment that I allowed that little girl to sit and say, wow, I think we've figured this out. And it's not about the size of the house. It's not about any of that. It's just that as a child, besides all of the everything I just talked about, we just did not have a lot of money. And so the homes weren't always great or even safe. And to persevere and, not just in obtaining, again, the degrees of higher education, but to then step into owning my own business, which was never on my radar. People over time kept telling me, you need to open your own business. And I would say, I don't know anything about business. And now I know a lot about business, right? But to get to that point, where I could create that space for me, that was a major, major change. And I felt so safe and so secure in that space. That's fun that you
Mm-hmm.
brought that up because I hadn't thought about it that way.
Yeah, yeah, and developing more of that relationship, this idea of home within, with that child, that home within, of how may I love you more? I found it very, very hard to have deeper relationships, more
Mhm.
more unconditional love relationships and partnerships, when
Absolutely.
so much within was just not really healing. You know, it's a it could be slow for others, it could be faster for others, but I don't know. I think coming into this world, we all have our own destiny and journey. And I don't know that we actually pick it. Okay.
Yeah.
We might know on a soul level, but we show up and the show begins.
Yeah.
I find this such a fascinating process. And then it gets down to, what do we actually have control over? I don't
Mm.
own my children. I have 3 children. I don't own them. I have grandchildren. I don't own them. I
Yeah.
don't possess them. I can't control them. We cannot control another human being outside of us, which is the ultimate freedom when we can suspend that. But what we can control is that relationship within.
Yeah, you brought up, Judy, about relationships, and there is no doubt that in my younger years, I would continue to choose relationships so that I would continue to grow. And I say that in being in a place where I definitely was not where I am today and wasn't sure that I felt I deserved love, but really wanted it. Always thought there would be abandonment. There was just this lack of self-esteem at times with me, and always thinking that relationships should be more. And, and it led to different things on my part or their part that, were not great actions. And until I continued to heal and get to the point where I knew that I actually loved myself. And this is a good point. So I grew up Catholic, so that's my roots. And as going through Catholic school, I went through 12 years, elementary school and high school. And, we were really taught that you're just not supposed to tell yourself you love yourself. Like, well, you're not that great, and so don't put yourself out there as being so. And I remember, I would say it was probably my late 20s, early 30s. I was in towards the end of a relationship, and I was in counseling, and I really felt I needed to talk with someone. And that counselor said to me, "Lorri, do you love yourself?" I said, I think so. And she said, "Can you look in the mirror and tell yourself, I love you, Lorri?" And boy, Judy, did that stop me at that moment, because I knew that I could not. And that was part of my conditioning, but it was also me just not being able to say that. And so I started to practice that. I literally was getting in front of the mirror, and I would start and I couldn't get it out. And I have coached people over the years on this to say, get in front of that mirror, say, I love you, Lorri, whatever your name is. And, do it, even though it's uncomfortable, and continue to practice that until you can look in the mirror at yourself and say, I love you. And once you can do that, that flips a switch. I will tell you from my personal experience, it flips a switch, and also allows you to then go back into situations like I've shared that you've experienced, and I'm sure the people on this call, where we didn't feel loved as a child, we didn't feel safe, all of those different things, and we were in survival mode. So today I can easily look in the mirror and say, I love you, Lorri. And what I love even more is I have that picture of me as a little girl, 3, 4, 5 years old, which if we're not putting up, I have it sitting behind me. I can bring it up to the camera. Where I just look at this little girl and I am amazed by her, the smile, this look, this old soul look that is just sitting there like, okay, I'm not sure what I'm in for, but bring it on. And, I've
Yeah,
been able
why don't
to
you
love.
show us?
Yeah, I would love
Yeah,
to.
yeah, yeah. Um,
So my grandmother's in the middle, and speaking of Catholic, that's my great aunt, Sister Loretta. And I'm sorry, the lighting above me is getting me,
That
but
is,
can
that's
you,
adorable.
yeah, let me try,
That
there
is
we
so
go.
adorable.
We'll come in
Yeah,
a little more.
could see
Yeah,
that pretty good. She's smiling. And,
yeah,
Dr. Lori, this would be a great exercise for everybody too, right? Find a
yes,
picture of a
yeah,
child when you were a child, right? You
right.
know, and just look at her, look at him. Maybe you want somebody else in your family. Just, look at this child with such love,
Mhm.
innocence, such beauty, such adoration.
Mm.
And this is what I do quite often, more now than ever in my life, where I'll get really still and I'll say, what do you need? How can I
Mm.
help you? How
Yeah,
may I love you more?
yeah,
And how does this affect the world? It's massive.
yes.
It's massive. We are in such an awareness and a transformation right now globally of love and light. How important to go and embrace into that, go deeper into that and feel that. And when
Yeah,
we're not doing it, we're not taking good care of ourselves. There's a lot of symptoms that go with it. There's neglect. There's I don't deserve, or this is going to take too much time, or I can't feel too much, versus be still, be calm, be quiet, take him for a walk, a ride, maybe a trip, maybe, just to have that awareness. And that is connecting into our higher self, our infinite self. You were going to
I,
say something?
no, I just wanted to say I agree, and being still like that and taking time to hug the child within, to thank them. I think that's one other thing that I've learned recently, where I have been hugging little Lori and telling her she's beautiful and so on. And then it hit me that I needed to thank her for being so strong and tenacious,
Mm.
because it took a lot to live, as that little girl, through a lot of muck. And so getting quiet and asking, I just love you saying that, because we don't take the time. We're all moving at such a quick pace. And, you know, my goodness, I know you know this. So, we have clients coming in all the time that say, can you help me with this? Can you do this? And then I give them answers. And what you said, too much money, too much time. I don't have that. I don't, whatever it might be. And, it gets to the point as a practitioner where I wonder, do I start saying, do you want the insurance answer? What insurance will pay for? Or do you want the integrative answer? And I don't mean that in a snide way at all. It's just that we have been programmed in the United States to use our insurance, and through that insurance expect that any doctor of any kind or any practitioner or any medication will make us feel better or heal us. And what we need to understand is that we really have a great responsibility to help heal ourselves. And part of that is to start getting quiet and listening to what we need, and letting some things that are in ourselves just get out of ourselves. And there are so many amazing ways: sound health, vibration, supplements, and patches. I mean, we can go on and on. Those are all great, but without really finding that inner love, we won't fully heal, because we have to. And the other thing you talked about, I believe you said responsibility. It's a responsibility to ourselves to get there. And then it's a greater responsibility, larger than ourselves, to get there. Because if we can, we then create space that draws people in and allows them to figure out how to heal themselves from within and how to get back into that inner child. And energetically, people will be drawn. And I will say this, and I say this so humbly, people walk in our building every week and tell me, first and foremost, your staff is amazing, this place is amazing. And then I also hear this place, I've heard this over the years, this place is like church. I feel like I'm elevated when I'm here. Everyone is so kind. How do all of you get along? How does the staff not bicker? Because we don't. How is this possible? And a new staff member, he and his wife just had a baby, and he said, everyone has been so kind from pre-birth to now, and so on and so forth, people giving them things. And I just said, Zach, welcome to the world of peace, love, and joy. That's at the depth of it. And if we have peace, love, and joy in ourselves, so peace, that quiet you're talking about, the I love yous that we're talking about, and then the joy. What is joy? There were years I didn't know what joy was. And then a couple of years ago, I wrote a series about joy after my mom and my aunt passed away. I knew I needed to find joy in my life again. And through that, now we'll spontaneously just start dancing in my house and singing or whatever it might be. But I will tell you that within the last year or so, I can say I feel joy. And I don't know if prior to that, I ever really felt it.
Wow. And that's the importance of the contrast that we live in too. Thank goodness we have those variety of emotions that can get us more to where we want to be and how we want to feel and what we want to do. And oh, wow, I just love what you shared about this, because people come here as well. And I think it's pretty common that they want to have a fix, they want something to be okay in 1 week or less than 24 hours. And yet that inner child inside has so much pain. They're so lost. They're so disconnected. How in the world, to really communicate the importance of integrating that relationship and how effective it is, to ourselves, our organs, our joy, like you said. And as we're kind of tying this up a little bit, I'll expose one of my little secrets. I have my own blanket. It's a blanket, it's a loving blanket that I sleep with every night. And I remember this years ago, where some people would have their own little Care Bears, or they'd have their own little special things that they cuddle and they hold at night. And I think it would be okay that I share this. My partner has his own blanket too, and it's there. I guess I'll find out later if that wasn't okay. But but there's something about that. It's loving to me. It's really precious. And there probably are a number of people who are listening that maybe they have their own too. I don't know,
Sure. Yeah, and
Yeah.
that's perfectly okay. Again, I mean, we have this little Eeyore stuffed animal at home that when you squeeze it, Eeyore talks, says, thanks for giving me a hug, or I needed that. It's adorable. Yeah, we don't allow ourselves to play. We stop playing, and we need to play, and multiple other things. And early on, you said about me doing something before I go to bed. And for the last month or two now, I'm not sure how long, I've been listening to some sound music from Jim Donovan. Jim was a drummer in the band Rusted Root. He's a long-term friend of mine. And I put this music on at night and I let it seep into my vagus nerve that needs love. My vagal nerve is like, please let me relax, please. And so I just put that on. And if I wake up in the middle of the night, I click some, there's two of them I listen back and forth to. But that's healing. It's healing at its finest when you're sleeping and your subconscious is doing its thing. And again, that's one way to allow healing to occur. And believe me, that vagal nerve, it runs from your head down to your coccyx, all the way down to your tailbone. And that thing feeds everything in your body, and it can get trapped when you have an imbalance in the autonomic nervous system. Way more to get into, but I think it's, finding that love and joy and peace that we talked about, and then finding simple things that can help, like turning on some music that really affects you positively, that you can feel that vibration. Crystal bowl music is amazing, the vibration that brings. And just making it simple so you don't feel like, oh, January 1's coming, I got to get in the gym, I got to go on a diet. All good. I mean, take care of yourself. I work out all the time, eat well all the time, but I know that often I just need to stop and be still and let something just seep into me.
I love that. And I want to thank you so much for joining here tonight as well. And I look forward to doing some more of this with you. In in closing, I want to read something from Latouche. And this is out of chapter 9. Do you think you can take over the universe and improve it? I do not believe it can be done. The universe is sacred. You cannot improve it. If you try to change it, you will ruin it. If you try to hold it, you will lose it. So sometimes things are ahead and sometimes they are behind. Sometimes breathing is hard. Sometimes it comes easily. Sometimes there is strength and sometimes weakness. Sometimes one is up, sometimes one is down. Therefore, the sage avoids extremes, excesses, and complacency. And to me, this just talks about the ebb and flow, and as we heal more of this with the inner child, there are less extremes. There isn't complacency. There's more kindness. You feel like you can create more, to open up the imagination. We're coming out of being suppressed as a society, suppressed as a child, suppressed and oppressed, and now, just like you talked about, I love that, wow, I can really feel that that goodness and that love, to be able to feel love, to be able to trust love. There's a lot of healing that takes place, having a lot of experiences to get to that point.
Yeah, no
So,
doubt. And just real
go ahead.
quickly, I wanted to say,
Yep.
one of the things that I have been doing for years and do much more now, just walking by people, typically people are uncomfortable. They put their eyes down. They don't want to look up. And I've made it a practice often. I could be walking through, and not in my office, out in the world, and I'll just say hi. And people are surprised. How are you today? And beyond that, I just was at a hotel over the weekend, and I was walking back to my room to grab something, and the cleaning person was in the hallway. And I was walking towards her, and big smile, I said, thank you. Thank you for your service. And she was amazed, and she smiled so large, and she said, thank you. And just those, it takes 2 seconds, and all you have to do is look and smile and say thank you. And what that does for another person as they're going in to clean up our mess is priceless.
That's beautiful. Beautiful. I love it. And thank you so much. And I look forward to doing another call with you. This would be great.
I love it, Judy. This is wonderful. I appreciate you to the heights, as you well know. And yeah, I look forward to our journey continuing for each other and for everyone who is on this path with us.